Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to begin by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the elders and to the apostles of Premier Stone, and enough respected brothers out there pushing and spreading the gospel of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua to the four corners of the world. Now, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, I just want to do a quick lesson on the Feast of Israel. Hopefully, it's quick. But before we get into it, there's one thing that I wish for anyone who is not aware to keep in mind, and that is that customarily in ancient Israel, the feast or even the Sabbath, the declaration of months were based solely on the phases of the moon. Whereas today we would, have our days determined regardless of the phase of the moon, right? It's the first, even if it's the full moon, and it's the 30th, even if it's the new moon, right, or the 31st. It wasn't so back then. Back then, the month was a month as long as these cycles were going on. And the month ends when a cycle completes, and a new moon comes in, and rinse and repeat, and the same thing goes on and on. So when we read the scriptures on the feast, and we come across commandments that talks about 14th day of this month, or the 15th day of the second month, or this, that, and the third, just understand that this is how they determine your feast. And we're going to go with precepts. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. It says, and the Lord, and God said, right, and the word there's Elohim, the gods, and said, let there be lights in the firmaments of the heaven to divide the day from night. Let there be lights in the firmaments of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. All right? And the book of Ecclesiasticus, or the book of Sirach, chapter 43, verse 6, it says, the sun, the moon, right, stands at its appropriate time. It is a notification of times and an everlasting sign. The sign for a feast comes from the moon, a luminous body that wanes when it completes its course. And this is, verse 5 says, great is the Lord Yahweh who made it. Right? It speeds on its course by his command, and it talks about the sun, but ultimately it talks about the heavenly bodies, all right? The pride of the heights, the appearance of the skies. So this is the ordinance that Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua has set in place. So the first, and in my opinion, the most important feast is the Passover, in remembrance of the final plagues of Egypt. And in that day, the word Passover comes from when the Lord passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt. And we're going to read the history of that in the book of Exodus, in the 12th chapter, and get all the information we can possibly get on this holy day. Now, because the Passover is on the evening, and in a sense begins also with the unleavened bread, we're going to come across the unleavened bread being mentioned when the Passover is being talked about. But just bear with me, I hope that it's not confusing, and I'm just going to try to clear it up as often as I can. So the book of Exodus chapter 12, starting from verse 1, as you can see, the title says, the Passover Lamb. It says, and the Lord Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. So although the Passover was kept on the 14th day of the first month, the ceremonies, or at least I believe the rituals, begins actually a few days before that, on the 10th day, or 4 days before that. 4 days before the actual killing of the Passover. And on the 10th day of the first month, we are to kind of choose a lamb, right, and dedicate it to be killed on that, on that night of the Passover. And the lamb is supposed to be, let me see, take every lamb according to the house of their fathers, for a lamb for a house. And if a house be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbors next to his house take it according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your account for the lamb. Right? So there's supposed to be plannings before that very night. Right? We ain't supposed to be running around on that Sabbath trying to figure out which lamb to use, and do you have enough lamb, and this, that, and running, everything is supposed to be in order on that night. It's supposed to be perfect and decent, right? So before that day, there's a lot of planning that goes involved, and one of that planning be to get a lamb. And it says your lamb shall be without blemish. So without blemish simply means there is nothing wrong with the lamb. The lamb doesn't have scars. The lamb doesn't have, patches where hair doesn't grow. It's not blind. It's not crippled. It doesn't have broken bones. It has to be a lamb without blemish. And it has to be a male. And it has to be 1 year old, right? Not 11 months, not 2 years old. It has to be 1 year old. It says, ye shall take it out of from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So this is why it's important for us to understand that salvation does not come by us following the law. The law, when we follow the law, we gain credibility, but the true salvation comes from our faith in Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Because, keeping the Passover, like me for instance, and I'm sure a lot of brothers are in the same situation, cannot bring a blood and put it on a doorpost. I don't own this place. Yeah. And even if you have a home and you wish to do that, how would you tell if your lamb is male or not? How would you know if your lamb is of the first year? Not everyone is so fortunate to have a farm, close to them where they can pick and choose, the suitable ones. A lot of us are unfortunate, and we are living amongst these heathens with our bread to follow. Even if you get your lamb, you make sure it's the first day. How do you know it doesn't have any blemishes? So this alone would discredit us from receiving salvation if our salvation was based purely on the law. All right. So we just got to be thankful for the grace of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, and that when we keep the law, it is in a sense a rehearsal, right, of the righteous act that is supposed to be established in the kingdom. We only supposed to be rehearse this so we understand what happens and appreciate the kingdom. Similar to how when we keep, all the when we do all the sacrificial rituals, we did it, so we can understand the things that Yahushai did for us. All right. So continuing on verse 8, it says, and they shall eat the flesh in the night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. It says, eat not of it raw, nor sodden it at all with water, but roast with fire. So get some water. It says, but roast with fire his head, with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. So, you have some camps out there that will hold the Passover, and then they will have a takeaway, with some lambs in it, put it in the fridge and eat it, throughout the week. We ain't supposed to be doing that. Nothing is supposed to leave, nothing is supposed to be preserved after that night. You either eat it, or the rest you burn with fire. It says, and thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, with your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord Yahweh. So when we eat the lamb, while we're eating the lamb, we're supposed to be fully dressed, right? As though you're about to get to step and you're about to run, flee. So you have to have your loins girded, right? If today you have your belt on, you have your shoes on your feet, and you also have if you had sneakers or anything that you tie, you have to tie it, fasten it on your foot, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. You're supposed to have a staff in your hand. It's not, sometimes you don't always have the, how do I put it, the means of having a staff in your hand, but you do the best you can, with the understanding that when you do these things, you are showing the Lord that you are trying everything to the best of your ability to be a righteous person. Verse 12 says, For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and I will smite all the firstborns in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord Yahweh. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. And the plagues shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. Now this goes into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Let me come back to that later on. It says, Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, Draw out and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And ye shall take a bunch of hyssop, and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two sides post with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out of the door of this house until the morning. For the Lord Yahweh will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and upon the two side posts, the Lord Yahweh will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. So this is where the word Passover comes from, because the Lord passed over the children of Israel in the night when he killed all the firstborns of the Egyptians. Verse 24 says, And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance for thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when ye come into the land which the Lord Yahweh will give you, according as he has promised, then ye shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, What mean ye by this service? Then ye shall say, It is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover. And who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians, and delivered our houses, and the people bowed their heads and worshipped. And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord Yahweh commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborns of the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, unto the firstborns of the captive that was in a dungeon, and all the firstborns of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt. Yeah, they rose up in the middle of the night. So I don't know if the kind of death that the Most High brought in was like some violent death, right? Because I remember watching a movie, this animated movie called the Prince of Egypt, and the way in which the Lord kills the firstborn, he kind of like takes away their breath. But for these people to wake up in the middle of the night because of a death, I imagine, right, it to be like a violent death. Maybe there was a loud sound, or the angel just straight up hewed them to pieces. Whatever it is, it was so violent, or it was in a way that Pharaoh rose up, him and all his servants, they rose up, and all the Egyptians in the middle of the night, and there was a great cry in Egypt, and there was not a house where there was not one dead man. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go and serve the Lord Yahweh as ye have said. So straight away, that was the final straw that broke the camel's back. The Most High wore them out with all the plagues that he brought upon Egypt, but the final one, he hit him real hard. And eventually Pharaoh, who was not in any way, surrendering to the will of the Lord, in a single moment, he sent command for the children of Israel to flee, to get out of the land of Egypt. And this is also something that the Most High promised Moses was going to happen. He told Moses it was going to happen. He said they were going to leave like they were thrust out, So it says, also take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, and their kneading troughs, being bound up in their clothes and upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And they spoiled the Egyptians, right? Because we had no intention of bringing them back, all right? And spoil the Egyptians in the sense of, whenever an army takes down a city, what do? They take all the riches out of it. And that term is called spoil, all right? And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were besides men and beside children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, and even every much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the troughs, which they brought forth out of Egypt. For it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victuals. All right, so it says, now the sojourner of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of 430 years, even the same self day, it came to pass that all the hosts of the Lord Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt. This is it, and it became an ordinance. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord Yahweh for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord Yahweh to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. Stranger in this sense mean the other nations. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and an hired servant shall not eat thereof, right, of another nation, and in one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh abroad of the house, neither shall ye break the bones thereof. So on top of the lamb being without blemish, first year old, right, separated on the 10th day of the month for the 14th day of the month, it is and eaten in haste, it is not supposed to be carried outside of the house. So in a sense, you can't eat the Passover and then go out the door to your neighbor's house to go eat it. Or you're not supposed to come out and eat that shit on the porch. You're supposed to eat it behind closed doors. And you're not supposed to break the bones thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto a stranger that sojourneth among you. So everybody's supposed to follow that law. You're not supposed to follow it differently because you are an Israelite from a different land, or because you're an Israelite that's born and that's native to the land. It says, thus did all the children of Israel, as the Lord Yahweh commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass the selfsame day that the Lord Yahweh did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. All right? So this is the history of the Passover. Now, there are special cases in the Passover. It's observed on the 14th day of the first month, which is in Leviticus 23, 4 to 5, I believe. I don't know if it said that in Exodus 12. If it didn't, right? Let me just have it. Leviticus chapter 23, these are the feasts of the Lord Yahweh, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. And the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. All right. So, and I believe Numbers 9, just so we understand exactly when it's being held. It says, let the children of Israel keep the Passover at his appointed time. And the 14th day of this month at even, ye shall keep it in his appointed season, according to all the rites of it, right? The rites that we read in the book of Exodus chapter 12, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, ye shall keep it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at even in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord Yahweh had commanded, so did the children of Israel. Now, there's a very important thing which is that the Passover initially was killed by each family member, right, and ate in their own home. Later on, a decree was made by the Most High for the Passover to be held at the temple and to be only killed by the Levites, right? And this came around the same time that the Lord gave a command that no Israelite was supposed to make their own sacrifices. You're not supposed to go out into the wilderness and do your own sacrifices, whether it be burnt offering or whether it be a sin offering. You're supposed to bring it to the Levites, who are trained in the rituals, right? The manner in which to properly sacrifice unto the Lord, and at the holy place in which the Most High has chosen for all holy deeds to be done. So at the same time, that was the same period that these laws started coming out. So Deuteronomy chapter 16, start from verse 1, it says, observe the month of Abib, which is the first month of the year, and keep the Passover unto the Lord Yahweh thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord Yahweh thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto the Lord Yahweh thy God of the flock and the herd in a place which the Lord Yahweh shall choose to place his name there. Right? So it says, thou shalt eat no unleavened bread with it. 7 days thou shalt eat the unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction, for thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt in haste, that thou mayest remember the day when thou comest forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of thy life. And there shall be no unleavened bread seen with thee in all thy coast 7 days, neither shall there be anything of the flesh which thou sacrificest the first day at even, remaineth at night until the morning. Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover, in other words, kill the Passover, within any of thy gates. So you can't just kill the Passover wherever you want within the borders of Israel, which the Lord Yahweh has given thee. But at the place which the Lord Yahweh thy God shall choose to place his name, there thou shalt sacrifice the Passover, thou shalt kill the Passover at evening. At the going down of the sun, at the sunset, that thou come forth out of Egypt. And thou shalt roast and eat it in the place, right, which the Lord Yahweh thy God shall choose. So rather than it being in your home, you shall eat it in the place where he choose, and thou shalt turn in the morning and go to thy tent. Then you go to your home. So we read in the book of Exodus chapter 12 that in the land of Egypt we ate the food in our own home. But today, after this commandment go out, it's kept in a church, right? In a congregation, which is where the word church comes from, congregation, and in a temple, which is why for those that are in camp, it's a camp, we hold it together. You know, it may not be the temple, but again, we are rehearsing a righteous act. We go so far as we can in doing the right thing. So it's a very important thing that people have to understand. Not a lot of people know this. A lot of people, when they think about the Passover, they only think about um, how we kept it in Egypt. But as time went on, certain, how do I kind of when you amendments were made. It says 6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day shall be a solemn assembly to the Lord Yahweh thy God. Thou shalt do no servile work therein. So after you eat the Passover in the temple, you go to your tents. Then you eat the feast of then you partake in the feast of unleavened bread. You eat your unleavened bread. You go about your day, but on the last day you're not supposed to eat. You're still not supposed to eat any unleavened bread, but you would, as opposed to the Passover being held within the temple, or at least close to the temple, if the whole nation of Israel cannot fit in, we would hold the feast of unleavened bread wherever we can. Just don't eat any leaven, right? So, an example of that I brought up in Deuteronomy 16. There's also one in the book of Ezra when there was a great reform after the Babylonian captivity. And this understanding of the feast is very important because throughout the whole Bible, there's a lot of reference made to the feast, which is why I have during Yahushua's time, it's not just Yahushua's time, but there was, for example, when you read in the book of Chronicles, right, it talks about the reforms of Josiah and the reforms of Hezekiah, right? And even with Solomon when he built the temple. You read all these things and it mentions very specific things that happened in this reform. And if you don't have an understanding of the Torah, of the laws, informations like this will go over your head, and you're trying to figure out, well, why is this going on? Why is that? Or if you read the book of Luke, and it talks about how Yahushua or Paul was compelled to go into Jerusalem, even though he knew that he might be killed. Well, but because it's the feast of the tabernacle, and he was not, I believe, have that too. Let me see. We'll get into that, But right now, it seems as though I'm going to have to limit my lessons to each holy day, right? So we'll get that one later. As a matter of fact, the Pentecost, right? You read in the book of Acts. So and then you read the book of Acts. It tells you Paul wanted to go into Jerusalem, during the feast of Pentecost, and he was compelled to his spirit to go to Jerusalem. Why is this going on? Why is that happening? You have to have an understanding, right? Strengthen your foundations first, and whatever you read on top of that, everything makes sense. So I brought up one reformation of this holy day. And I have 2nd Ezra chapter 6. Wait, 2nd Ezra. Oh man, the book of Ezra. Right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take care of that. So this is at the time when the temple was completed and its dedication. It says, then Tatnai, governor on this side the river, Shethar Boznai and their companions, according to that which Darius the king has sent, so they did speedily. And the elders of the Jews builded, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet, and Zechariah the son of Iddo, and they builded and finished it, according to the commandment of the God of Israel, and according to the commandments of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. So remember, it says they built it according to the commandment of God of Israel. So we're going to figure out why it's according to the commandments of the God of Israel. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month of Adar, which was the 6th day of the reign of Darius the king. And the children of Israel, the priests and the Levites, and the rest of the children of the captivity kept the dedication of this house of God with joy, and offered at the dedication of this house of God 100 bullocks and 200 rams, 400 lambs, and for a sin offering for all of Israel 12 he goats, according to the number of the tribes. And they set the priests in their divisions, and the Levites in their courses, for the service of God which is at Jerusalem, as is written in the book of Moses. And the children of captivity kept the Passover upon the 14th day of the first month. For the priests and the Levites were purified together, all of them were pure, and killed the Passover for all the children of captivity, in other words, the children of Israel, and for their brethren, the priests, and for themselves. The priests and the Levites do the killing, right? The book of Deuteronomy chapter 16, right? Okay, so you can connect the dots. And the children of Israel, which were come out of captivity, and all such as had separated themselves unto them from filthiness of the heathens of the land, to seek the Lord Yahweh of Israel, did eat and kept the Passover of the unleavened bread 7 days with joy. All right, so with that being brought out, let's look at some special cases that happens on the Passover. The book of Numbers, chapter 9. While the Passover is kept on the 14th day of the first month, what happens when a man is incapable of doing it? Because he's far away, or because he's what? Because he's defiled. Let's start from verse 4. Numbers chapter 9, verse 4 says, And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at even in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord Yahweh commanded Moses. So did the children of Israel. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of the Lord Yahweh in his appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto them, Stand still, and I will hear what the Lord Yahweh will command concerning thee. Right? And the Lord said unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your posterities, in other words, your generations to come, shall be unclean by a reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord Yahweh. The 14th day of the second month at even they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. All right. It says, but the man that is clean, so if you have no excuse, a man that is clean and is not on a journey and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same so shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord Yahweh in his appointed season, that man shall bear his sin. All right, it says, and if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover according to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. He shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that is born in the land. So with that being said, let's find out an example of this. An example of this is Book of Chronicles, chapter 30, verse 13. It says, And there assembled at Jerusalem much people to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the second month, a great congregation. And they arose and took the altar. Let me see right now. Okay, it's going to tell us the reason. And they arose and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem, and all the altars for incense took they away. And this is talking about the Reformation of Hezekiah, right? When he took away all the idols and all the things that profane the temples, the unclean things. When he did all that, it says, and they arose and took away the altars that were at Jerusalem, and all the altars of incense took they away, and cast them into the brook of Kidron. Now these were all for idols. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month. And the priests and the Levites were ashamed and sanctified themselves, and brought in burnt offerings into the Lord Yahweh, into the house of the Lord Yahweh. And they stood in their place after their manner, according to the law of Moses, the man of God, and the priests sprinkled the blood which they received at the hands of the Levites. So they stood in their place after the manner, according to the law of Moses, Deuteronomy chapter 16. They killed the Passover from now on. The priests sprinkled the blood, and they received of the hands of the Levites, which they received of the hands of the Levites. And because not all Levites are priests, right? But all priests are Levites, for there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified, because the priests were the sons of Aaron. They were from the lineages of Aaron, right? And the priest would choose of their brethren who to help them with the priestly ordinances, right? It's like, yeah. It says, for there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Therefore the Levites had the charge of the killing of the Passover for everyone that was not clean, to sanctify them unto the Lord. For a multitude of the people, even of Ephraim and Manasseh and Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Hezekiah prays for them, saying, the good Lord Yahweh pardon everyone that prepareth his heart to seek God, and the Lord Yahweh God of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary. And the Lord Yahweh hearkened to Hezekiah, and healed the people. And the children of Israel that were present at Jerusalem's feast kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with gladness. And the Levites and the priests praised the Lord day by day, singing with loud instruments unto the Lord. So this is Hezekiah. Hopefully read or have an understanding of the Passover. You understand what was going on. Another point would be the video. I don't mean to make this very long, so this may be the last one. Well, actually, no. Let me just not go into this. The same thing happened with Josiah, but Josiah's was kept in time, in the actual time of the Passover, except the point is that the Levites did the killing, all right? Right. So the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their place, and the Levites in their courses, according to the king's commandments, and they killed the Passover. And the priests sprinkled the blood from their hands, and the Levites flayed them. Right. So that going on. Yes. Now let's go into Yahushua's time. Let's see how Yahushua kept the Passover, or if the Passover was mentioned during Yahushua's time. So, the book of Luke, chapter 41, now his parents, Yahushua's parents, went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. Why? Because we read in the book of Leviticus 23, 3 times a year shall all male appear unto me, right? To keep the Passover. Also, Deuteronomy chapter 16, the Passover isn't kept in your home. It's kept at the temple. So you would go to Jerusalem. See? Now, you can make the connection. It says, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. The custom of the feast is that everyone is supposed to meet in Jerusalem, not just in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem is where the temple is at, so that's where they will go. And when they had fulfilled their days, as they returned, the child Yahushua tarried behind them in Jerusalem, and Joseph his mother knew not of it. So their days were fulfilled. They kept the days, which is the night unto the morning. Everyone goes to his home. Not that the days fulfilled, meaning they also stayed up for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, because it says after 3 days they found him in the temple, right? So if it's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, then their days will not be fulfilled within 3 days. So, everything is making sense then. That's one. Another one will be Luke chapter 22. I believe it's the same thing, but a different. So Luke chapter 2, Yahushua keeps it when he's young. This time he keeps it when he's about to be killed. Luke chapter 22, verse 7, it says, then came the day of unleavened bread, when the Passover must be killed. And he sent Peter and John, saying, Go and prepare us the Passover, that we may eat. And they said unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare? And he said unto them, Behold, when ye are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house wherein he entereth in. And ye shall say, and ye shall say unto the good men of the house, The master saith unto them, Where is the guest chamber where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he shall show you a large upper room furnished. There make it ready. And they went and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover. So this was the night when he was put to death. Let's get Matthew chapter 26. I believe there was a time when the priest, let me see. All right, let's Matthew chapter 26. It says, Now the first day of the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Yahushua and said unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare to eat the Passover? And he said, Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Yahushua appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. So, this has happened in Jerusalem, and at the place where the Passover is supposed to be kept. Let me see. Special cases, right? So the Passover is in remembrance of the children of Israel, right? It's in remembrance of the Lord passing over the houses of the children of Israel. It is observed in the 14th day or in the 15th day, because of it's kept in the evening of the first month, which the scriptures call the month of Abib. It is a time when all the children of Israel are supposed to meet up in Jerusalem, and that's where the temple is at. And it's supposed to be kept in, It's supposed to be killed in the temple by the priest, right, or the tabernacle before the temple was established. But yeah, this is pretty much it. In special cases, if someone is unclean or is unable to keep the Passover, they are supposed to make themselves available on the second month, on the 14th day, and keep the Passover. So we read Yahushua, when he was a young kid, he went up to Jerusalem. Same thing before his death in Jerusalem, kept it, in the upper room. So yeah, with that, with the Passover, I'm going to end it right there. Shalom. To all the Akims and Akwifs to listen in truth and sincerity, how Bashim Shah Brakatham. May the blessing of blessing be upon the house. I hope, that, this was very edifying. And I'm going to try, to go into the rest of the feast. And then, Lord willing, everything makes sense. So with that, I'm gonna end it by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Ruach HaKodesh, and Shalom, Yahweh Bashim Shah Brakatham.